Welcome to His Word Heals. You can also visit us online at www.hiswordheals.com, where you can find our podcasts, videos, and blogs, as well as free books and CDs.
So then, on to our main topic. Where are we on Abba's prophetic timeline, and what does that have to do with Passover, or possibly more significantly, Abba's second Passover? As a reminder, what is the second Passover? In Numbers 9:6-12, we are told, "There were men who were defiled for a being of a man, so that they were not able to perform the Passover on that day. So they came before Moses and Aaron that day, and those men said to him, 'We are defiled for the being of a man. Why are we withheld from bringing near the offering of Yahweh at its appointed time among the children of Israel?' And Moses said to them, 'Wait, let me hear what Yahweh commands concerning you.' And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, 'Speak to the children of Israel, saying, When any male of you or your generation is unclean for being, or is far away on a journey, he shall still perform the Passover of Yahweh. On the 14th day of the second month between the evenings they perform it. With unleavened bread and bitter herbs they eat it. They do not leave of it until morning, and they do not break a bone of it. According to all the laws of the Passover, they perform it." It is interesting that the question posed to Yahweh through Moses was, "What do we do if we are unclean on Passover?" But our Elohim answered not only that question with the solution of observing Passover in the second month, but also the unasked question of what about if someone can't perform the regular Passover because they are in a distant land? We are currently and have been in a distant land for thousands of years. Perhaps this second Passover is a prophetic clue for us today to watch events unfold with the second Passover as a marker of some sort. King Hezekiah, my favorite king besides King David, of course, invited all of Israel, both northern and southern kingdoms, to observe the second Passover in 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verse 5. "And they settled the matter to send a call to all Israel from Beersheba to Dan to come to perform the Passover to Yahweh Elohim of Israel at Jerusalem, since they had not done it for a long time, as it was written." King Hezekiah then sent this message by runners to all Israel. 2 Chronicles 30, verses 7-9. "Children of Israel, turn back to Yahweh Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, so that he returns to the remnant of you who have escaped from the hand of the kings of Assyria, and do not be like your fathers and like your brothers who trespassed against Yahweh Elohim of their fathers, so that he gave them up to ruin, as you see. Now, do not stiffen your neck like your fathers. Stretch forth the hand to Yahweh, and come to his set-apart place, which he has set apart forever, and serve Yahweh your Elohim, so that his burning wrath turns away from you. For if you turn back to Yahweh, your brothers and your children shall be shown compassion by their captors, even to return to this land. For Yahweh your Elohim shows favor and compassion, and does not turn his face from you if you turn back to him." Is this not a message for us today? Let's see how this message from King Hezekiah was received. 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verses 10-21. "And the runners passed from city to city throughout the land of Ephraim and Manasseh as far as Zebulun, but they were laughing at them and mocking them. Some from Asher and Manasseh and Zebulun, however, humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. Also the hand of Elohim was on Yehudah to give them one heart to do the command of the king and the rulers at the word of Yahweh. And many people, a very great assembly, gathered at Jerusalem to perform the festival of Matzah in the second new moon. And they rose up and removed the slaughter places that were in Jerusalem, and they removed all the incense slaughter place and threw them into the Wadi Kidron. Then they slew the Passover on the 14th day of the second new moon, and the priests and the Levites were ashamed and set themselves apart, and brought the ascending offerings to the house of Yahweh. And they stood in their place according to their right ruling, according to the Torah of Moses, the man of Elohim. The priests sprinkled the blood from the hand of the Levites, for many in the assembly had not set themselves apart. Therefore the Levites were over the slaughter of the Passover for everyone who was not clean, to set them apart to Yahweh. For many of the people, many from Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, had not been cleansed, yet they ate the Passover contrary to what was written. So then, not everyone was able to be biblically clean, even on this second Passover. Yet once the Passover blood was sprinkled by the priests, they were allowed to eat the Passover anyway. The sprinkling of the Passover blood by the priests and their willing, obedient, and repentant hearts made it possible for them to eat the Passover contrary to what was written. What a picture of our Messiah's blood that was sprinkled for us. Going on then, Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, Yahweh, who is good, provide atonement for everyone who has prepared his heart to seek Elohim, Yahweh, Elohim of his fathers, though he is not cleansed according to the cleansing of the set-apart place. And Yahweh listened to Hezekiah and healed the people. So not only did they observe the second Passover, even in an unclean state, they were healed, and they joyfully observed an additional 7 days of unleavened bread, for a total celebration of 14 days. Prophetic? Perhaps. Let's keep that in mind. Not only did many of both houses of Israel participate, but so did the sojourners, or goy, Hebrew Strong's word H1616, who sojourned or lived among the Israelites, those who wanted to be joined to Israel and Israel's Elohim. Now that we have this background of who observed and why they observed the second Passover, let's look at what this all may have to do with us today. We are all in a distant land, and without the sprinkling of Yeshua's blood as our Passover lamb, we are also in an unclean state, unable to partake of the Passover, which is what is required for our deliverance from Egypt, and I believe from Babylon as well, both spiritually and physically. The physical being a very real picture of the spiritual. Many of us observe the first Passover as a rehearsal of things to come and a remembrance of events past. Perhaps there is a coming time for us to observe the second Passover as part of the second greater Exodus and his great and final deliverance of his people from their captives. If so, how will we know when? Or will we know when? Is this part of the no man knows the day or the hour of his coming? Or will we be told ahead of time when to watch and be ready for this great exodus and deliverance like both Noah and Joseph were? I believe like both Noah and Joseph, we will be told and have already been told if we are studying both Scripture and the signs he has told us to watch, like the wise men or magi also were doing. As a refresher, how long before the flood did Noah know exactly when the rain would begin? He was building the ark for around 120 years, during which time he had no idea when exactly the flood would come. However, in Genesis chapter 7, when Noah was receiving our Elohim's final instructions for loading his family and the animals onto the ark after the ark was completed, in Genesis 7 verse 4, Yahweh told Noah, "For after 7 more days I am sending rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and shall wipe from the face of the earth all that stand that I created." Yahweh gave Noah a 7-day warning before Yahweh himself would seal up the ark. Keep this sealing up for deliverance in mind for a minute. Now what about Joseph? He was warned 7 years ahead of time before the great famine was to come upon the entire land, so that he and all of Israel would be delivered and even prosper through this great famine. Just as Noah was given instructions in over 100 years' time to prepare an ark for Yahweh's deliverance, Joseph was also given time to prepare for the famine. During the time of preparation, however, Noah did not know exactly when the rain would start. But Yahweh did tell him exactly when he would be sealed into the ark and the rain would begin 7 days prior to when it occurred. Joseph, on the other hand, was told at the very beginning of the time of preparation when the famine would begin. He was told to prepare for 7 years because the famine would come in 7 years. Compare 7 days before the rain started, when Noah was told when he was to enter the ark for his deliverance, and the 7 years before the famine, Joseph was told when the famine would start. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. And as we have discussed in many past programs, Joseph is a picture of the first and second comings of Yeshua. Why would we not believe that we will be told some period of 7 prior to our deliverance and the famine of, I believe, both the word and physical food that is coming upon the world in our time, which is very possibly, as we will also see, also the beginning of the day of Yahweh. Perhaps we have already been shown, but many of us missed out of the 7-year warning. Is there still time to prepare? At the very least, prepare spiritually and mentally. Please keep listening and prayerfully consider this message and our Abba's instructions in His Word before you just dismiss it. What if the first blood moon of the 4 blood moon tetrad that occurred on Passover in 2014 marked the beginning of Joseph's 7 years of plenty warning? When nothing happened in 2014 and 2015 as some false prophets suggested would, but instead life as we knew it kept moving forward and the economy kept getting better, especially after Trump was elected, many people dismissed these heavenly signs as nothing, all hype by which a particularly prominent evangelical preacher profited. But let's take a fresh look at these heavenly signs in light of what is currently happening now. How long ago was it since the start of this blood moon tetrad?
The Passover of 2020 was the
7th Passover since the first tetrad Passover blood moon of 2014 and marks the end of the 6th year following that first blood moon. Since the end of that tetrad, or 4 blood moons on Passover, Sukkot, and Passover, Sukkot 2014 and 2015, there have only been 3 additional blood moons up to this point. 2 during the month of Shavat, 2 years in a row, in 2018 and 2019, and 1 during the month of Av in 2018 between those 2 Shavat blood moons. We all know the month of Av is the month that all the bad things happened to the temple in Jerusalem throughout history, and many of us may know that Shavat is the month of the trees, when the trees planted in the land are counted as aging a year older, in order to know when their fruit can be harvested by the Israelites. Leviticus 19:23 through 25. And when you come into the land and have planted all kinds of trees for food, then you shall reckon their fruit as uncircumcised. For 3 years it is uncircumcised to you, it is not eaten. And in the 4th year all its fruit is set apart. Praises to Yahweh, and the 5th year you eat its fruit, so that its increase is yield to you. I am Yahweh your Elohim. So the fruit of the trees is uncircumcised for the first 3 years. Then the 4th year it belongs to Yahweh. Then the 5th year it is clean and released to be eaten by the Israelites. All throughout Scripture, trees are a picture of people, and we are to bear fruit, and like Yeshua inspected the fig tree for fruit, our Abba inspects us for our fruit. Perhaps the law of the trees is a picture of people as well. Perhaps, taking into consideration with our suggested blood moon tetrad 7-year warning, let's see what years these 2 Shavat, month of the trees, blood moons occurred. If the Passover blood moon of 2014 marked the beginning of the first year of a 7-year warning period, what year would the 2018 Shavat blood moon have occurred in? Passover 2014 to 2015 is year 1, Passover 2015-2016 year 2, 2016-2017 year 3, and Passover 2017-2018 is year 4. The 4th year is when the blood moon occurred in the month of the aging of the trees, when their fruit was set apart to Yahweh. Then the 2nd Shavat blood moon occurred the very next year in the 5th year between Passover 2018 and 2019. The 5th year of the tree is when the fruit is circumcised and able to be eaten by the Israelites. This timeline of the trees has to be prophetic and pointing to something, otherwise it really doesn't make sense. If these 2 Shavat blood moons are another confirmation of the 2014-2015 tetrad being a sign of 7 years, then perhaps the blood moon that occurred in the month of Av between these 2 Shavat tree blood moons is a warning to the trees, or people, of pending judgment to come, which will begin after the 7-year warning. These 7 blood moons, the 4 of Passover and Sukkot of 2014-2015, plus the 2 Shavats, and 1 Av equals 7 blood moons. There's that warning number again. In and of themselves, the fact that there are 7 blood moons in 7 years is quite compelling. But there's another blood moon to make the 8th blood moon just after the 7 years ends. 8 being the number of new beginnings after the number 7 of completion in Scripture. Guess when this 8th blood moon occurs? It occurs on Sivan 15 of 2021 after the end of the 7 years in the 3rd month of the 8th year, Remember, Passover 2018 and 2019 was the 5th year. Then Passover 2019-2020 is the 6th year.
Passover 2020 to Passover 2021
is our 7th year or last year of warning or preparation possibly. The next or 8th blood moon is on Sivan 15/20/21, which historically marks the birth and death of Judah, the son of Jacob or Israel. That is Sivan 15 of next year, 2021, after 7 years of warning and preparation. Is this blood moon after the 7 years of warning possibly marking a reset or cleansing of the house of Judah in the land of Israel, an end to the unbelieving Jews, and a rebirth of Jews whose eyes will be opened to who Yeshua really is? Is it possible they will be reborn through Yeshua Messiah and grafted back into their tree? According to our previous timeline, this 8th year after the first tetrad blood moon is also possibly when the 6th seal of Revelation is opened, which is when the 144,000 are sealed with the seal of Yahweh before the 7-year tribulation. Noah was sealed into the ark after a 7-day warning or heads up, and Joseph was given 7 years of plenty and warning prior to the famine over the entire land. Then after this 8th blood moon on Sivan 15, the day that Judah was born and died, the very next year on the 2nd Passover in 2022, ER 15, there is another blood moon. Is this possibly when the remnant, or 144,000 of the 12 tribes marked by Yahweh at the 6th seal, which are still scattered throughout the nations in an unclean but cleansed by the Passover lamb state, will begin to be gathered back to Israel to proclaim his vengeance in Zion?
I'm going to insert just a small clip here from our most recent video before this one called Daniel chapter 12 as it relates to Matthew 24 and Revelation 11 so that you can see the first part of Daniel's vision in Daniel chapter 12, I believe was about the regathering of Israel back to the land the first 3.5 years of the tribulation before the last great tribulation portion of 1260 days. Daniel chapter 12. At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there stood 2 others, one on this river bank and the other on that river bank. And one said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, How long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be? Then I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever and ever, that it shall be for a time, times, and half a time. And when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, all these things shall be finished, and shattered there can be scattered as well. Although I heard, I did not understand. Then I said, My Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. So, in Daniel 12, verses 1 and 2, Daniel is told there will be a time of distress such as never was since there was a nation. And during that time, Daniel's people shall be delivered. We can see here in the ESV, in Daniel 12, verse 6, the question is asked by the man clothed in linen, How long shall it be till the end of these wonders? In other words, he's asking, when will this end begin? It is literally asking, when will this final end time period come? When is the end coming? When will the end start? In verse 7, an answer is given that says it would be for an appointed time, times, and half a time, which of course is where we get the 3.5 years. And when they have ended scattering the power of the set-apart people, then all these things shall be completed. So this could be saying when the time of scattering is over and the time of gathering begins, then there shall be a 3.5 year time period, but 3.5 years until what? Evidently, Daniel is still not clear on when exactly the end of these matters shall be, because in verse 8, he says he does not understand and asks, I still don't understand. What is the latter end of these matters? Basically saying, okay, that's when this time of distress such as never has been starts, 3.5 years after the scattering has ended and the gathering begins, but when is the latter end or the end of the end? When is it over? So far we have the end begins after the scattering ends, and then the gathering begins, and there is a 3.5-year time period after the scattering ends and the gathering begins. But Daniel's asking, when is the end of the end? What happens after this 3.5-year time period of gathering? This was just a clip from the Daniel video, and you'll have to go to our website to watch the entire thing, www.hiswordheals.com, and it can be found on our blogs page. But you can see here, my point being, the first 3.5 years of tribulation, I believe, is the time during which all Israel, or the remnant of Israel, is gathered back to the land. And that would be the true remnant of Israel, all those whose eyes are opened or will be opened to who Yeshua really is. So I also believe, based on our other timelines that we already talked about, the second Passover that I believe we will observe, just as all of Israel observed with King Hezekiah, will take place during that first 3.5 years, which could be coming up very soon, considering that there is another blood moon on the second Passover of 2022. That sign in the heaven, taken along with all of the others that we discussed and that we also discuss on the other videos that I mentioned, all point to either a lot of coincidences or a possible true timeline for the 7 years of famine or great tribulation leading up to 2028.
As in King Hezekiah's time, will the Passover again be honored correctly and in Jerusalem, but for 14 days by the gathered and marked remnant? Have we been given a 7-year heads up, 7 years of plenty prior to the 7 years of judgment, wrath, famine to come, which may be the 7-year tribulation, just like Joseph was given 7 years of plenty before 7 years of famine? Did our 7 years start on the first blood moon of the Tetrad of 2014-2015, and will it end after the Passover next year in 2021? Was this 7 years also our 7 days of warning before the 144,000 are sealed, just as Noah received a 7-day warning before he, his family, and the animals that would be saved were sealed into the ark, just as the judgment of rain started? Is this 8th blood moon telling us that Yahweh's remnant are to be sealed with Yahweh's seal for the second greater exodus, which may begin on the next blood moon, which will occur in 2022 on the second Passover? Perhaps the blood moon marking the second Passover of 2022 is a sign that we, who are in a distant land, will begin to be gathered back to Zion in a greater exodus, so that we can honor that second Passover of 2022 for 14 days together, just as they did in King Hezekiah's time. For those of you who have watched our 2 videos that came out over 2 years ago regarding Psalms 90, 80 years of due to strength, and signs in the heavens, this is just another witness that we are possibly headed into the final stretch of this age before our Messiah and King returns. If, as we previously suggested, the 80-year generation since Israel again became a nation ends on Yom Kippur in 2028 with the end of the 7th year of tribulation and blowing of the final 7th trump of Revelation, then the first year of tribulation would begin on Yom Kippur in 2021. Then by 2022, perhaps many of the sealed remnant are gathered back to the land of Israel after a reset, and then celebrate the second Passover marked by a blood moon in Zion, just as King Hezekiah invited all Israel to do as well. Again, please visit our website at www.hiswordheals.com to watch the videos 80 Years of Due to Strength, the Revelation Timeline, and the Signs in the Heaven,
and also the complete video, Daniel chapter 12, as it relates to Matthew 24 and Revelation 11. Again, those can be found on our website at www.hiswordheals.com. Blessings and shalom to all of you and everyone in your home. And please share and like these videos.